We are very fortunate today to have with us the three principals of DKS Consulting Group. We have Karen Hoffman. She is a Brown alum from the class of '83. She is a current parent of a student who is possibly graduating this year. She is an attorney by trade, and she has brought with her her two partners, Dale Sokoloff, a psychologist, and Sharon O'Connor, a management consultant, and together they make up DKS Consulting Group. And this group is a career and executive coaching and small business consulting boutique firm. And basically they work with individuals who want to perform better at work, transition to new jobs, or start their own businesses. So Karen, Dale, and Sharon, welcome today. Please talk to us a little bit about this struggle that many of us, especially me, face with trying to balance work and family and all the aspects of our lives.
Thank you so much, Heather. This is Karen. I'm going to start off, and it is a little challenging because we're on a computer, so we will let you know which one of the three of us is speaking. So thank you, Heather, for inviting me and my partners, Sharon and Dale, to participate in this year's webinar series. And welcome to all of you who are joining us today to explore this really challenging topic of seeking balance in your work and your life. This is what we're going to do today. First, we're going to share with you some steps to achieve a more balanced life using the process that we've developed for our coaching and our business clients. We're going to talk about how to figure out what your real priorities are. Next, we're going to share with you how to craft a vision of a life that's balanced for you. Then we're going to take a look at how to discover and overcome obstacles or self-limiting beliefs that are holding you back from realigning your life. And then finally, we're going to share with you some practical strategies for achieving more balance. As Heather told you, I graduated from Brown in 1983, law school in 1987, and I've worked full-time or part-time since then. In 1991, my husband and I had our first child, and by choice, I became the primary caretaker, or as I also like to refer to as the parent of last resort. My plan was to have a thriving, successful law practice, look fabulous in designer suits, be a leader in the women's bar, finger paint with my kids, and make organic homemade soup. Don't ask me why making soup was part of my plan because honestly, I don't even like to cook. But anyway, by 1995, I was pregnant with my third child and things weren't going exactly as I had planned. Let me tell you about the time I was on the telephone negotiating a settlement agreement. I realized that I was late to get home to relieve my sitter who had to get to a class. I told the attorney on the other line that I had to dash into a meeting, but I'll try and get back to him later in the afternoon. I ran home, put my 14-month-old in the pack and play, and called the attorney back to try to resume our conversation. Things seemed to be going on okay until I saw out of the corner of my eye my son climbing out of the pack and play with no clothes on. He didn't even have a diaper on. So I tiptoed over, quickly scooped him up, and stood him on the coffee table where I was working and tried to resume my conversation until he proceeded to pee all over my settlement documents. This is a true story. Needless to say, I ended the conversation. It became very clear to me at that time that I really needed to make some changes in my life. I was pulled in too many directions, totally stressed, and I felt like I wasn't doing any job well. So I transitioned my practice to a more manageable area of the law, adjusted my childcare, and I decided to simply strive to fold the laundry more regularly, get my kids to sleep through the night, and fit into one of my old suits. My kids are now 22, 20, and 18. My partner Dale has been the primary caretaker of her two boys who are also 22 and 20, and while they were growing up, she was commuting to an office full-time and then part-time. Sharon, believe it or not, has 20-year-old triplets, can you imagine, and a middle schooler. She's worked part-time from a home office since her triplets were born. Dale, Sharon, and I had similar fantasies about having it all, and we know that this ideal continues to be pervasive in our culture. But today, we're not going to debate the issue of whether you can have it all, even though so many of us were raised to believe that we could. And we know the media is forever replaying this issue. The bottom line is this. Having it all is a myth. You can't, at least not all at the same time. And honestly, who would have energy for it even if we could? But here's what we do believe. We believe that with a little bit of work and some focused attention, we can all have more balance in our life. And that is really a goal worth striving for. The important step is to shift your mindset away from a focus on what you think you should be doing to a focus on what genuinely fills you up. In this way, you really can create a life that works better for you to achieve whatever matters most to you right now. And you know, we say right now because what's really important to you today, whether it is your job or your marriage or your children or your dress size or your volunteer work or even your garden, that is going to change. A recent study by a group of Harvard psychologists demonstrates that people really underestimate how much they're going to change in the future. They can look back on their own past and see tremendous amounts of growth and change, but they really can't imagine that happening in the future. But if you ask those same people years later, they again will acknowledge how much they've changed. So here's the thing. Don't expect what you need to be balanced today to be the same as what you will need to be balanced in the future. And let's try not to figure this out for the next 25 years. Let's try to focus on the balance that you need right now. And just like any other portfolio, you can rebalance it in the future. But the first step in all this is to figure out what your real priorities are. And I'm going to hand it over to Dale, who's going to share with you just how to do this.
Thank you, Karen. This is Dale. I'm going to talk to you about how to identify your priorities. You have to know who you really are and what's genuinely meaningful to you in order to achieve any sort of balance that is gratifying. If you're looking to emulate someone else and balance your life according to what works for them, I guarantee you will add more stress to your life and not succeed at any of it. If you know who you really are, though, if you know your true self, then you can determine what your real priorities are and make choices that are right for you. Everyone has that neighbor. I do. You know the one. She's a doctor working with cancer patients, has 6 kids of her own, all of whom are perfect. She never raises her voice. Her garden is magnificent. And the only time you see her is when you run into her working out at the gym where she dropped off freshly baked muffins for the charity sale. I'm not kidding. I know this woman. I'm with you. I don't know how she does it. And honestly, I couldn't do all of that even if I tried. If you try to create the sort of balanced life that works for somebody else, or you think is working for somebody else, you're just adding more stress to your life. So how do you figure out who you are and what really matters? Often women in particular lose track of their true selves. We put a high value on caring for others and are so busy meeting the needs of other people that we can forget what we love to do and what really matters to us personally. This, in fact, turns out to be the #1 concern that people have when they come to us for career coaching. The complaint is something like this: I'm not happy with how this is going exactly, but I don't know what would make me happy. And even if I did, I don't see how it's possible. To help people reclaim their true selves, we do an exercise to identify your skills, strengths, and valued experiences. And this is essential for figuring out your priorities. We cannot create a balanced life until we figure out what is most important to us, as Karen said, right now. Those of you who listened to our webinar last February are familiar with this simple exercise. And if you haven't heard it, I believe it's still available through Brown's Career website. You might want to download and listen to it. It's not complicated. It's actually fun to do, and you'll feel much better once you try it. So here's what you do. Take a piece of paper or create a document on your computer whatever works for you. And make 3 headings. You can even put note cards in your pocket, one for each. Just make 3 headings somewhere. 1 for skills, 1 for strengths, and 1 for experiences. Then, under each heading, do a brain dump in each category. Skills are activities you've learned over time, practiced, and become very good at. I've listed a few here that just came to mind: writing, painting, organizing people, doing a PowerPoint, public speaking, changing a diaper with one hand. I learned that one very well. Research, computer programming, problem solving, singing, skiing. Can you think of some others? Can you think of things that you are really pretty good at, that you've done many, many, many times? Strengths refer to qualities that come naturally to you and with ease. They're part of what we really think of when we think of who we are. I've listed here: mature, funny, has a great memory, detailed thinker, diplomatic, quick learner, a natural leader, flexible, articulate. Perhaps you can think of some others. One of the questions I like to ask people to come up with one of their strengths, a core strength, is: what's one thing about yourself you wouldn't change, no matter what? Did you answer that question? I promise you that is one of your core strengths. Experiences here refer to anything in your life that you've truly enjoyed doing or found meaningful. Coached youth sports, co-chaired fundraisers, traveled someplace that was significant to you, gave a presentation at a board meeting, gave birth to your children, sang in an a cappella group. I'm sure you can list many, many, many experiences. And here's what you should do next. No matter how many experiences, strengths, and skills you put on your worksheet, ask people who know you. Ask someone who knows you really well, maybe your spouse, your best friend, your mother, to add to your list. What are some skills and strengths that you haven't thought of? Other people are very, very good at thinking of your skills and strengths. And then take a highlighter and highlight 3 to 5 things in each category. Take a red pen, take a yellow highlighter, whatever works for you. 3 to 5 things in each category that really give you joy when you do them. Things that you truly, truly enjoy doing. This is a key exercise to balancing your life. If you look closely at the items you've highlighted that truly bring you joy, you can begin to ask yourself whether these skills and strengths are the ones you are primarily using in your life, and whether the experiences you are having are the ones you truly value. If not, it's time to look for ways to move in new directions. Let me tell you my story, or let me tell you a story of a client that we worked with. This was a young associate at a large, prestigious law firm. Many of you know what that job is like. They pay you a lot of money to work a zillion hours, and you have no time for your friends, for dating, for exercising, or even reading a novel. Our client Jim did this exercise and realized that what he loved was counseling others and mentoring. He wanted to use these skills in a more direct way on individuals' lives. He decided that while the money that he was making in the law firm was really nice, he could take a pay cut, continue to pay down his loans, and use his legal skills in a different setting, such as a university or a college. The hours would be much more reasonable, and he would have time to coach kids, see friends, and feel more in control of his life. Some people find that when they do this exercise, that they really do need to make a big change to rebalance how they spend their time. But other people find that all they need to do is make a small change. Maybe they just need to leave work an hour earlier, one day a week, and get to the gym or meet a friend for coffee. Some people find they're actually doing exactly what they love. It's just hard on many days. It's important to figure that out so you can embrace the choices you've made and feel okay about them for right now. The important thing is to understand who you are and what really matters to you. After you go through this exercise of highlighting and reviewing your skills, strengths, and experiences, the next step is to craft a clear, compelling vision of what a balanced life would look for you. I'm going to turn it over to Sharon now, who's going to explain why this is so important and share with you our best practices for creating a vision of a balanced life.
So, ladies, while you're switching, a few comments have come in. Great that people were sharing ideas. Some people said, I'm really great at making things calm when there's a lot of chaos. I'm really great at coaching. I'm great at thinking outside of the box. And one of the things that I loved about this presentation is that sometimes we need to realize that maybe we don't actually need to make a change, but maybe we need to get help. That's what you're always, maybe there's somebody else who I can farm that out to. And one question that came in terms of the right now is, how do you keep your career in the picture of what skills you might need or what you might need to do, so that if you're jumping off the career track or you're taking a step back maybe to a part-time position, how do you keep that in the picture? Say, what do I need to do now to be there in 5 years so that I can maybe jump back in?
Okay, hi Heather, this is Sharon. Hi everybody.
Hey, Sharon.
We are going to take the questions at the end, and we will definitely address that. It's such a great question, and it's a question that we get a lot. So we'll address all the questions at the end. So, hi everyone. When people come to us to help them find their way to a meaningful, well-paid career, they often qualify that wish with the statement, I just don't believe it's possible for me to have this great career and still have a life. Both men and women, married or single, have things that matter to them beyond success at work and are trying to achieve balance. Let me share with you the next step in our process that shifts our minds away from getting stuck focusing on all that is not working to a mindset that refocuses us on a positive vision for the life we want to create. We call that strategy visioning, creating an exciting, motivating idea of exactly what we want pulls us forward like a magnet, allowing us to see ways around obstacles that are blocking our view. A compelling vision gives us a destination to move towards. All great athletes use this mental strategy for achieving their highest levels of performance, and we'd like to share with you the best practices for crafting your own vision, where you have a career that's fulfilling and blended with a life that works. So, a compelling vision has 5 elements. It's focused, specific, framed in the positive, has language that gives it an exciting emotional charge, and is written down. Let's talk about the first element, focus. When many people come to us for career coaching, we soon discover that not only do they want to change their work situation, they also wouldn't mind getting a car with better gas mileage. They'd like better clothes. They wish they'd kept in better touch with their college roommates. And they also think their lives would be 100% better if they lost 10 pounds. I'm sure all of us have a similar long list of changes we want to make. However, for a vision to effectively work, we need it to be focused on one area of our life. If we create a big overstuffed vision with all the areas we want to change shoved into it, it's just overwhelming and not helpful at all. It needs to be the right size. If it's too small, you'll have no motivation for achieving it. If it's too big, you can become overwhelmed. The trick is to craft a vision that feels exciting but not anxiety-producing. And by the way, your vision needs to be about yourself, not changes in your spouse, your partner, your kids, boss, or mother-in-law. It's funny though, time after time, when we've seen clients make a real change in their work life, wonderful positive changes ripple over other areas of their lives. Let me share with you a story about one of our clients who recently went back to work as a gemologist and jewelry buyer. She'd been out of the workforce for 18 years raising her kids and then taking care of her dying parents. But she needed to go back to work, and she was overwhelmed with the notion that she wouldn't be there to cook a nice dinner each night. The first few weeks of her new job, she cooked dinners all weekend long so her family would have lovingly prepared meals each night during the week. One day, her youngest son decided to cook dinner as a surprise. He microwaved nachos and cheese, and his side dish was chocolate milk. Her other two boys and husband raved about that dinner. She realized that a happy dinner time really didn't depend upon her cooking it. She stopped stressing about home-cooked meals, and each of her boys decided to cook one meal a week. Now, I have to tell you, they're having a lot of French toast and pancakes for dinner. But family mealtime is a lot more fun, and the boys are learning valuable skills. And we see this happen a lot. When someone makes a positive change in one area of their life, unexpected, happy changes happen in other areas. But let's get back to vision. The second most important element of crafting a compelling vision is specificity. Once you've chosen a focus for your vision, and in this case, creating a balanced life, you need to add the details. And let me tell you why this element is so important from a cognitive psychological perspective. Say you're in the market for a new car. You're not making much progress until you see a commercial for a Prius and decide, that's it, I want a Prius. And not just any Prius. You decide you want a spanking new 2013 silver Prius with 4 doors and a sunroof. Later that day, when you drive into the grocery store parking lot, you see your Prius parked up front. You open the Sunday paper, and there on the front of the auto section is an ad for 2013 Prius hybrids. You're driving down the highway to your kid's soccer game, and in the left lane, not one, but 2 silver Prius hybrids pass you. How did this car get so popular all of a sudden? You're seeing them everywhere. The thing is, these cars have always been there. It's just now you can see them. And the reason is it's actually a function of our cognitive processing. When you specifically identify what you want, your cognitive filters are lifted so you can find it. Every day we're bombarded with stimuli. Our filters prevent our senses from becoming overloaded with visual distraction, street noise, and that itchy label on the neck of your shirt. However, specifically identifying and detailing your vision allows information to break through your cognitive filters so that you'll see opportunities and ideas and information that you couldn't see before. That is why the skills, strengths, and experience exercise is so important. When you figure out what your priorities are, you can weave them specifically into your vision. I'll just mention the other 3 areas of vision because we really don't have the time to cover it here in this forum like we do in our client sessions, but they're important to mention. The third element of visioning is positivity. Your vision must state what you do want, not what you don't want. And this is an epiphany for most people. Or to put it another way, we move toward and create the things we think about. Cognitively, this is just the way our mind works. We need to direct our attention to what we want and not focus on the barriers and obstacles in order to achieve our goal. The fourth element is using language to describe your vision that gives it an emotional charge. And you writers out there know the importance of language. Here's an example of what we're talking about. A vision with no emotional charge sounds like this. All the elements of my life feel balanced and my obligations are met. And here's an example of an exciting vision that pulls you forward. I look forward to working each day because my work fills me up, is meaningful, and allows me to be an important financial contributor to my family. I set aside time each week to play the piano and have coffee with a friend. And I am aware of how grateful I am to have a loving, chaotic, and thriving family. Talk about emotional charge. This is why we say that the language you use is so important to help you move forward. The fifth and final element is that your vision needs to be written down. It's an active commitment to put pen to paper. This takes your vision out of the realm of ideas and thoughts and places it squarely within the realm of possibility. So to wrap this up, a compelling vision will pull you forward like a magnet towards your goal of creating a more balanced life. And now Dale is going to share with you how we approach tackling obstacles that you think are in your way.
Hi, everyone. It's Dale again. Welcome. I can actually hear the wheels turning in many of your brains right now. Some of you are thinking, that sounds nice, but it's not realistic. I would like to leave work at a reasonable hour, but my job is too demanding. Or, I'd like to work part-time and be home with my kids more, but there are no jobs in my field that are flexible. Or, I don't spend enough time with my kids as it is. How can I possibly go away for the weekend with my friends like I'd love to? I know what I want, but I just can't do it. Well, as Sharon said, we move towards what we think about, and sometimes we think, I can't do that. It's just not possible. Or I shouldn't do that. It's not right. We call these thoughts self-limiting beliefs because they pull us in the opposite direction of where we want to go. Life always presents us with many challenges, but our negative beliefs become the boulders that really get in our way. We need to become aware of these negative thoughts because often we've practiced them for so long in our heads that we don't even recognize that they're ideas. We think of them as reality. But when we look closely at the ideas we hold in our heads, they keep us from making the choices and taking the steps that lead us closer to achieving our vision. We realize that these ideas were learned at some point in our lives. And they are typically based on assumptions that might not actually be true. Or at least maybe they were once true, but they're not true anymore. Let me tell you my story. In addition to being a career coach, I am a psychotherapist. I was taught that to be a good therapist, I had to create a totally neutral environment for my clients, one that remained completely predictable and with as little intrusion of my real self as possible. So, based on this assumption, I believed that to be a good therapist, I needed to have regular weekly appointments, always be on time, and only be away when I could give my clients lots of notice and time to discuss it. Believe it or not, each of my maternity leaves were fully planned, and if ever my children got sick, I had to have backup childcare for my backup childcare because I could never be the one to leave the office and pick them up. This was, needless to say, a little stressful, but I did not believe that I had any choice. And then something happened. I broke my ankle. I was out of the office for nearly 3 months. I fully expected my entire practice to evaporate during that time. But lo and behold, every single one of my clients returned to work with me. All but one expressed real concern for my well-being, and while they did fine in my absence, they were eager to pick up the work as soon as I returned. What a huge lesson this was for me. I was carrying around an assumption governing my ideas that clients require a completely neutral space in which the therapist's life is not evident so that they could focus on their work. So from this, I had a self-limiting belief that said I have to maintain perfect boundaries around my client's experience and between our lives. It turned out this wasn't quite true. I didn't need to maintain a perfectly neutral space. I only needed to maintain a neutral enough space. I learned I could take care of my own needs. I could still be a good therapist. I began to reschedule clients when I needed to take longer vacations, sometimes without much warning. I moved my practice closer to my home, and I changed my working hours to better suit my work-family life balance. And my practice continued to thrive. Oh, it's hard to get rid of those self-limiting beliefs. We look at what we think is reality, but we make some faulty assumptions about what is going on. So what we see bears some resemblance to reality, sometimes a lot, but it's distorted. It's like looking at reality through a funhouse mirror. Then we come to conclusions that aren't quite right, and we practice those conclusions in our minds over and over and over again, so frequently that they actually become mental habits, and those mental habits can hold us back from achieving balance. Let me give you a simple strategy for identifying a self-limiting belief and what you can do to challenge it. Self-limiting beliefs are thoughts you hold in your head that often begin with one of the following phrases. Notice in my case, the phrase was, "I always have to be." That led to an assumption that led to a self-limiting belief. Some of the other phrases that self-limiting beliefs begin with, you can see here on this slide. What I'd like you to do is try this. See if you can complete one or more of these phrases as it applies to your own wish to achieve more balance in your life. I can't. I shouldn't. I'm too. I could never. I wish I could, but. I'm stuck because. Take a minute and actually complete one of those thoughts that comes to mind right away. Most people don't have any trouble with this exercise. Now think about your response. If you've come up with more than one, think about the idea that really hangs you up when you think about achieving that lovely vision. Now imagine that your best friend in the world came to you and said to you exactly this. What would you say to him or her? How would you advise them? It's amazing how we can always see the options and to deal with the obstacles that are in the way when they're in the way of someone else. Imagine you are telling your friend what he or she should do. Now tell yourself. Now, finally, we want to give you some practical strategies that are really helpful to most people to begin to realign your life. I'm going to turn it over to Karen, who's going to review some practical strategies with you.
Thank you, Dale. So, balancing your life really is about two things. It's about shifting your mindset, and it's about tweaking your life. First, what's really essential is to give yourself permission to be okay with the choices that you're making right now. And also to give yourself permission to give up some control and be comfortable with not being perfect. This is a concept that seems to be particularly difficult for Brown grads to embrace. We need to strive for greatness and not perfection. Trying to be perfect is actually a self-limiting belief that holds us back. Next, expand your mindset about what success really means to you. Success is so much more than just paychecks and titles. Try to think about the value that you bring to your family and your friends and your colleagues and even your community. Also, try to be an empowering partner, and you will gain empowering partners. An empowering partner is someone who builds you up, cheers you on, and helps you problem solve. So try to support your peers and colleagues wherever you can, whether it's at work, about life, or family issues, because if you support them, then they are going to be there to support you. Also, establish life-affirming boundaries, both in time and in place. Try to create a scheduled time slot just for you. Think about the things that really re-energize you. Again, this is not what you think you should be doing, but rather, what do you actually want to do? Go back to your skill, strengths, and experience worksheet and see what matters most to you. Also, try to put boundaries around places too. One suggestion is not to bring laptops into the bedroom. And try to manage your technology. Don't let it manage you. It's hard to remember, but you actually have control and a choice about when and where you respond to emails, texts, Twitter, and Facebook messages. Set a time to end reading and responding to messages each day, and then really try to stick to it. There is a fabulous book on this topic called Hamlet's Blackberry, and it's all about managing your technology. It's actually listed on our resource page that we're going to get to in a minute. Another strategy is try to divide and conquer at home and at work. We need to accept the fact that we can't do it all. So, detail all of the home chores and include the time it takes for you to do them each week. Then divide it up, or as I love to say, farm it out. You would be surprised at what you can subcontract. Pre-cooked meals, ordered groceries, gift and clothes shopping, homework helpers, laundry folding, and the like. Again, take a look at your skills and strengths and figure out how you really want to be spending your time. And then finally, identify distractions. You'd be surprised at the time you will gain by choosing to eliminate an hour of television, internet, or other distractions in your life. Okay, I agree. Watching television and surfing the web can be really relaxing. In fact, Sharon will tell you that she has lost years of her life on Zappos. But try to pay attention to the time it's taking away from things that you would truly love to do, that you don't think you have time for. Soaking in a tub, taking a class, reading a book, coaching a team, meeting a friend for coffee, or even going for an evening walk. But if you remember nothing else from this webinar, I know that'd be hard to believe, but if you remember nothing else, we want you to remember this. Strive for greatness and not perfection. This mind shift alone will help you achieve more balance in your life. Now, Heather, do you want to address some of the questions that have been raised?
Yeah, I think this is a good time for that. I also, when we sent out asking people for their assumptions, and I found that it was interesting because a lot of them actually relate to your practical strategies. Your strategies are great at sort of breaking them down. So some of the responses were, I'm not good enough. I must always be available, right? That's definitely, we have to recognize with the technology. Others can't. Others, my husband can't make dinner as well as I can, or others can't, help my child when they're sick. And then somebody said anything with the word should.
Yes, right.
Those are good responses. So the question earlier that came in about, if I'm making a choice now, but I want to have I think I'm going to want a different choice in 5 or 10 years, say with my career. Can you talk about, sort of how to balance that?
Sure. I think the first thing, and we do get this question a lot with our clients, and I think we addressed it a little bit in our webinar last year, but I think the first question is, what is really important to you? What does your career mean to you? And oftentimes it means so much more to someone. It's, using skills and strengths that are much more important to them than they think. So that is the first thing that we would look at. What are the skills that you love about working that you want to hold on to? The next thing is, thinking however many years down the road, there's an assumption that because you're thinking about that, it's important to you. So there are ways to work, both paid or unpaid, in different capacities that can help you hold on to the skills and experience that you will need to get back into the paid workplace workplace if that's what you want to do. I think it's really important to break down the skills and strengths and experiences, though, that you have more than just the category of work, because what we see so much in our practice is that people who, enjoyed practicing law, and then they have children and they stop working in that capacity, actually enjoy a lot of the things that they did as a lawyer, but don't necessarily want to go back into that particular job. So it's piecing out the skills and strengths that you want to use and figuring out how to hold on to them so that you're still marketable. Is there anything, Dale or Sharon, you want to add?
No, I think that's exactly right. And for people who actually have that question, Heather, we're assuming that the webinars that we did last year are still up.
Yep. Yes, they're there.
And so we did a webinar last February on returning to the paid workforce. And if anybody's interested, has this question, to actually go back and listen to that webinar, tells you sort of where you want to be and how to utilize those skills, strengths, and experiences along the journey to put yourself in exactly the right place. But yes, what Karen said, if we know what skills and strengths we want to hold on to, we keep those going, regardless of whether we're in the paid workforce or not.
And that may include continuing education courses. If you're a social worker, or, we work with a dentist who,
maintain your license.
Maintain your license. There's lots of ways to do that and still, step out of that paid job.
Volunteer
right.
in a role. Yeah.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm getting
yes.
several questions about where are the webinars. And if you go to alumni.brown.edu, the homepage, there's always a link right there to all the webinars. Usually there's one promoting whichever next webinar is coming up. And if you click on that, underneath the ones that are about to be shown, below is all the archived ones. And they're right there for you to click on. Another question that has come in is, can you talk a little bit about just understanding that reality of the demands of the workforce and figuring out how you find a place that may support your values and help you with achieving some of that balance?
That's a very good question, and we get that a lot. The first thing, of course, is to figure out exactly what you want and what you need. The second step is really to, and that, of course, is creating your vision, as Sharon described. It's really important to have a very, very clear vision of what the workplace would look like and be like in order for you to achieve a balanced work and life. If it includes having flexible hours, having supportive colleagues, flex time, whatever it is, or an opportunity to give speeches in front of associations. It doesn't matter what it is, but you need to, the first step is to very, very clearly and specifically and positively figure out what your vision is. Then once you've figured that out and you start looking at, let's say it's a company or a firm, you need to do your due diligence and figure out, just because, let's assume it's a family issue, just because a firm tells you that they're family friendly doesn't mean that they're really that friendly. If in a big law firm that means that everybody leaves at 8 o'clock instead of midnight, that might not be friendly enough. But there certainly are different cultures within workplaces that might fit your needs. So doing your due diligence. And also, making choices and being very clear on what those choices are. We recently gave this similar talk to the Women's Bar Association, and one of the women had just taken a new job. She worked in a small firm not a firm, a company, a small company. She was in-house, and the work was so flexible. She came and went. Whatever she needed to do was supported, but she didn't feel like she had an opportunity to grow professionally. So she made a choice to leave, and she went to a different company, which was allegedly family-friendly. But once she got there, it didn't feel as friendly as she had hoped. And so she asked us, I've been there 6 weeks. Do you think that I should raise this issue and try and negotiate hours? But this job is very important to me, and I hope to advance. And we told her it was too soon. That she needs to prove herself, and they need to see the value that she brings to the company, and then then she can try and negotiate. So I think there's a couple of pieces. Being very clear on what you want, doing your due diligence, and then trying to negotiate after you've been there and demonstrated your value.
Okay. Another question that came in is looking at, the man's role and men trying to look at having also, more balance and taking more responsibility and sharing those details, but fighting, workplace perceptions or assumptions.
Yeah, the three of us have talked about that a lot, and we also, our male clients have raised this as an issue, and I do think that there is a double standard when it comes to spending time with children and being a primary caretaker. There's no question about it. But I do think that it's the same process for men as it is for women. It's figuring out what your priorities are and then making choices and being okay with those choices. I know in my own case, it's really, really important to my husband that he has coached his kids. And I don't know if you know about Little League Baseball, but that starts in the afternoon. And if you're, a partner in a big law firm, that can be very challenging. And he worked out a way to make that happen. It is what it is. So I think, again, it's figuring out what is most important to you by going through the process that we recommended. And then it's the same as women. Are there double standards? Yeah, there are. There's no question about it. But it's still possible to make those choices.
Can you talk a little bit about, are there still continued double standards in the workplace? What are you seeing? What's your take on that?
Well, of course there are double standards in the workplace. And I think Heather, so what this is Dale, I think what some of these questions are about the external constraints that come up in the workplace, whether it's the hours that you need to work, or whether it's the meetings that you need to attend, or whether you're in an environment that actually is where you're actually expected to show face time for very long hours. And if you're not actually in the office doing the work and being visible, then people don't trust that you're actually doing the work. I think workplaces vary in terms of their cultures. Some
Right.
cultures are clearly more family friendly and absolutely see the individual as being responsible for getting their work done and making decisions about how they're going to do it. And other places still have an environment where they expect you to show up and be present for long hours. And there's a lot of variability there. What we're trying to say, though, is that within whatever the external constraints are, to look very carefully at what the thoughts in your head are actually adding to those constraints and making them more difficult than they actually really are. What we find is that for people who really love what they're doing and have chosen a workplace where they are passionate about the work and they're using skills and strengths that they value highly, they are tremendous contributors to their organizations, and they are truly valued employees. And the more you're seen as someone who really adds value to an organization, the more you get to be seen for who you are and not along a particular stereotype and according to whatever the culture brings. And the more give the organization will have for you in particular. And you lead the charge when it comes to that. And we say, do the very best job that you can do at the things that you're really good at. Have those things be visible. And then when you need to take time off, whether like Karen's husband, to coach the baseball team in the afternoon, well, people know you're so good and you get your work done that they're willing to go along with it, and they still respect you, and in fact, you still get the promotions. So you have to look really, really closely at whether you're moving towards your goal. And if your goal is to be successful in the organization, that's great. Move along those lines. But that doesn't mean that your goal doesn't also include doing some other things outside the organization that you are choosing.
Right. I'm noticing that we're running out of time. I wanted you two to just have a chance to talk, you three, to talk a little bit about the resources that you have, and then we can talk about ways for people to continue this conversation.
Okay, hi, this is Sharon. We just wanted to, there are so very many wonderful resources about this topic, and right now, and we've listed a few on the resource page. For instance, the Atlantic article, Why Women Still Can't Have It All. That's an important overview of the topic. Salon has another fabulous article, Can Modern Women Have It All? Our favorite, because it's funny, is Hillary, Tina, and Girls Like Them, that was in the Boston Globe. And if you really are struggling with technology taking over your life, we highly recommend Hamlet's Blackberry. He's done a fabulous job of giving a historical perspective on how technology has taken over our lives over the course of the past 500 years. So, and what we've done as a culture to respond to it. So I think it gives us a historical perspective on technology and what people have done in the past and how we can learn from them. The other thing I want to point you to is our whole process is based on positive psychology. And that is a really up-and-coming field within the world of psychology, and we want to point you to the UPenn website called Authentic Happiness, and they have some fabulous assessments that you can take that can help you become clearer, in particular on your strengths. They have a fabulous values and action assessment. There's a bunch of assessments that you may want to take that will help get you clear on what makes you happy and how you can get more of that kind of stuff in your life.
For your information, we just want to make sure that you know that the Brown Alumni Association offers at least some tools for you. We wanted to provide you as many resources as we could. And we've given you a focus tool. We've started the executive coaching program. We're doing this webinar series. We have a research tool. We run a job board that's alumni to alumni job postings. We always have over 600 jobs or around there. And, of course, we have our wonderful in-house networking tool, Brunette, which is filled with lots of volunteers who have said, yes, I'm willing to be out there and be a resource for people. And it's a more important link to you. It has some direct context to, your life and something that was special to you. We also have a really nice LinkedIn group plus several specialty groups. The BAA group has over 11,000 members, so please check out all those resources. Wanted to let you know we will continue having the webinar series. So first, if you have questions, you can contact us. And if you're interested in any more of the webinars, or if you're interested in the issue of visioning, we're going to continue that idea with Carolyn O. She's going to talk about claiming your career vision. And then after that, we have Joelle Murkison-Hayes, who's going to talk about the evolution of diversity. I think that will be a very interesting conversation as well. Karen, Dale, Sharon, thank you so much. Do you have anything you'd like to say before we sign off?
We just want to thank you for including us in your webinar series. It was just such a pleasure, and we enjoy our coaching as well. And we welcome the questions, and we will hopefully get all of the responses on Facebook.
Okay, that's great. Please take a moment to finish the poll, and please feel free to send us any questions at our website, and thank you for attending today.